колеги, за київським часом 10 година. Згідно з постановою Кабінету міністрів України від 12 січня 2022 року номер 44 зі змінами, затвердженого нею порядку присудження ступеня доктора філософії та скасування рішення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради закладу вищої освіти, наукової установи про присудження ступеня доктора філософії, наказом ректорки Західноукраїнського національного університету номер 523 від 27.08.2025 року на підставі рішення Вченої ради Західноукраїнського національного університету протокол номер 9 від 27.08.2025 року створено спеціалізовану вчену раду ДФ 58 082 082 Західноукраїнського національного університету з правом прийняття до розгляду та проведення разового захисту дисертації Лю Хань на здобуття ступеня доктора філософії з галузі знань 01 освіта педагогіка за спеціальністю 011 освітні педагогічні науки. Згідно з порядком присудження ступеня доктора філософії та скасування рішення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради закладу вищої освіти наукової установи про присудження ступеня доктора філософії, пункт 27. Захист дисертації повинен мати характер відкритої наукової дискусії, в якій зобов'язані взяти участь здобувач, голова та усі члени разової спеціалізованої вченої ради. Під час атестації здобувачки члени разової ради повинні оцінити науковий рівень її дисертації та наукових публікацій з урахуванням дотримання нею академічної доброчесності. Перевірка на доброчесність дисертації Лю Хань виконана із використанням програми Turnitin Similarity. Текст дисертації здобувачки за результатами перевірки на наявність академічного плагіату, фабрикування чи фальсифікування не містить запозичень без належного посилання на джерело, що відповідає критерію дотримання здобувачем академічної доброчесності. У разі надходження до закладу звернень інших осіб з оцінкою дисертації, разова рада озвучує їх під час публічного захисту дисертації та з урахуванням результатів їх розгляду приймає відповідне рішення. Такі звернення беруться до розгляду у разі їх надходження не пізніше, ніж за 3 робочих дні до дня захисту дисертації. Хочу повідомити, що звернень від інших осіб з оцінкою дисертації Лю Хань до закладу у встановлені терміни не поступало. Заклад забезпечує трансляцію захисту дисертації в режимі реального часу на офіційному веб-сайті Західноукраїнського національного університету, а також відеозапис трансляції захисту дисертації. Після прийняття разовою спеціалізованою вченою радою рішення про присудження ступеня доктора філософії, заклад протягом 3 робочих днів оприлюднює рішення разової ради про присудження ступеня доктора філософії та відеозапис трансляції захисту дисертації на офіційному веб-сайті ЗУНу з можливістю вільного перегляду. Шановні колеги, заслухайте інформацію про здобувачку. Згідно з поданими документами, Лю Хань народилася 21 червня 1989 року, громадянка Китайської Народної Республіки. Після закінчення у 2014 році Юньнанського університету національних меншин Китайська Народна Республіка отримала кваліфікацію освітній ступінь магістр за спеціальністю національне традиційне виховання. У 2021 році вступила до аспірантури Західноукраїнського національного університету. Згідно із наказом номер 489 від 29.10.2021 року була зарахована на денну форму навчання за спеціальністю 011 освітні педагогічні науки. Успішно виконала освітню наукову програму та після завершення навчання отримала академічну довідку номер 106 від 21.06.2025 року та висновок наукового керівника доктора педагогічних наук, професора кафедри освітології і педагогіки Західноукраїнського національного університету Ребухи Лілії Зіновіївні, які подані в атестаційній справі. З вересня 2016 року і дотепер викладач Юньнанського національного університету Китайська Народна Республіка. Лю Хань звернулася до структурного підрозділу кафедри освітології і педагогіки Західноукраїнського національного університету із письмовою заявою щодо отримання висновку про наукову новизну, теоретичне і практичне значення результатів дисертації. Успішно пройшла публічну презентацію наукових результатів дисертації та її обговорення на фаховому засіданні кафедри освітології і педагогіки ЗУНу 26 серпня 2025 року, протокол номер 1. Результати обговорення та проведення презентації відображені у висновку про наукову новизну, теоретичне та практичне значення результатів дисертації, що підписаний головуючим на засіданні кафедри доктором педагогічних наук, професором, завідувачем кафедри освітології і педагогіки Західноукраїнського національного університету Чайкою Володимиром Мирославовичем з пропозицією щодо кандидатур складу разової спеціалізованої ради із захисту дисертаційної роботи на присудження ступеня доктора філософії за спеціальністю 011 освітні педагогічні науки. Здобувачка Лю Хань звернулася з письмовою заявою до Вченої ради ЗУНу щодо утворення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради. За результатами розгляду заяви прийнято рішення Вченою радою протокол номер 9 від 27 серпня 2025 року та на його підставі видано наказ номер 523 від 27 серпня 2025 року про утворення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради для присудження ступеня доктора філософії у складі 5 осіб, голови разової ради, 1 рецензента та 3 офіційних опонентів. 25 серпня 2025 року оприлюднено електронну копію дисертації у форматі PDF із текстовим шаром з накладеним електронним підписом здобувачки. Висновок про наукову новизну, теоретичне і практичне значення результатів дисертації, інформацію про склад разової ради та посилання на веб-сайт, де здійснюватиметься трансляція захисту дисертації. До локального репозитарію Західноукраїнського національного університету подано електронний примірник дисертації, а друкований примірник дисертації, підписаний здобувачкою, до бібліотеки закладу. Електронний примірник та анотацію дисертації, облікову картку відіслано до Державної наукової установи УКРІНТІ, зареєстровано 28 серпня 2025 року. Інформацію про утворення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради подано до інформаційної системи Національного агентства із забезпечення якості вищої освіти 28 серпня 2025 року. Усі документи, що представлені до разової спеціалізованої вченої ради, оформлені відповідно до вимог чинного законодавства. Рецензія рецензента та відгуки опонентів були надіслані вчасно та розміщені в електронному вигляді на офіційному веб-сайті університету з накладеним електронним підписом, а також подано інформацію про дату, час і місце захисту та розміщено оголошення про захист дисертації Лю Хань у розділі оголошень. 29 серпня 2025 року внесено повідомлення до інформаційної системи Національного агентства із забезпечення якості вищої освіти про дату, час і місце проведення публічного захисту дисертації Лю Хань. Згідно з пунктами 13, 14, 17, 22 Постанови Кабінету міністрів України від 12 січня 2022 року номер 44 зі змінами про затвердження порядку присудження ступеня доктора філософії та скасування рішення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради закладу вищої освіти, наукової установи про присудження ступеня доктора філософії, до спеціалізованої вченої ради надійшли всі необхідні матеріали. Шановні колеги, дозвольте відрекомендувати членів нашої разової спеціалізованої вченої ради ДФ-58 082 082. Рецензент Кричківська Оксана Василівна, кандидатка педагогічних наук, доцентка кафедри освітології і педагогіки Західноукраїнського національного університету Міністерства освіти і науки України. Опоненти: Мосейчук Юрій Юрійович, доктор педагогічних наук, професор, декан факультету фізичної культури та спорту Чернівецького національного університету імені Юрія Федьковича, Міністерства освіти і науки України. Конох Анатолій Петрович, доктор педагогічних наук, професор, завідувач кафедри теорії та методики фізичної культури і спорту Запорізького національного університету Міністерства освіти і науки України. Шукатка Оксана Василівна, докторка педагогічних наук, професорка, завідувачка кафедри фізичного виховання та спорту Львівського національного університету імені Івана Франка, Міністерства освіти і науки України. І я, голова ради, Царик Ольга Михайлівна, докторка педагогічних наук, професорка кафедри іноземних мов та інформаційно-комунікаційних технологій Західноукраїнського національного університету Міністерства освіти і науки України. Прошу членів ради підтвердити свою присутність підписами у реєстраційній картці. Офіційно присутні тут члени ради: рецензентка Кричківська Оксана Василівна. Будь ласка. Підпишіть. Та опонентка Шукатка Оксана Василівна. Прошу писати. Дякую. Та я, голова ради, Царик Ольга Михайлівна. Підтверджуємо свою присутність підписами особисто. Хочу зазначити, що офіційні опоненти професор Мосейчук Юрій Юрійович та професор Конох Анатолій Петрович беруть участь у засіданні разової спеціалізованої вченої ради з використанням відеозв'язку Zoom. Ця програма забезпечує відкрите голосування відповідно до пункту 28 постанови КМУ від 12 січня 2022 року номер 44. Шановні колеги, прошу перевірити якість зв'язку опонентів професора Мосейчука Юрія Юрійовича та професора Коноха Анатолія Петровича.
Зв'язок добрий.
Зв'язок гарний.
Дякую. Прошу дозволу офіційного опонента Мосейчука Юрія Юрійовича підтвердити присутність на засіданні спеціалізованої вченої ради підписом голови ради. Чи даєте ви на це дозвіл?
Так, даю.
Дякую. Прошу дозволу офіційного опонента Коноха Анатолія Петровича підтвердити присутність на засіданні спеціалізованої вченої ради підписом голови ради. Чи погоджуєтеся ви на це?
Так.
Дякую. За реєстраційною карткою з 5 членів спеціалізованої вченої ради присутні на засіданні 5 членів ради. З них докторів наук з наукового напрямку, за яким підготовлено дисертацію, 4. Кандидатів наук з наукового напрямку – 1. Отже, засідання вченої ради правочинне, тому є пропозиція розпочати засідання. Чи є якісь інші пропозиції? Дякую. Усі члени ради згідні розпочати засідання. Отже, на порядку денному захист дисертації Лю Хань на тему «Формування комунікативної компетентності майбутніх вчителів фізичної культури у закладах вищої освіти», поданої на здобуття ступеня доктора філософії за спеціальністю 011 «Освітні педагогічні науки», галузі знань 01 «Освіта педагогіка». Чи є інші пропозиції щодо порядку денного? Дякую. Оскільки інших пропозицій немає, пропоную проголосувати за затвердження порядку денного підняттям руки. Хто за? Проти? Утримались? Немає. Згідно із порядком присудження ступеня доктора філософії, та скасування рішення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради закладу вищої освіти наукової установи про присудження ступеня доктора філософії, засідання ради проводиться державною або за бажанням здобувачки англійською мовами. Із здобувачкою погоджено мова захисту англійська. Чи є заперечення, колеги? Здобувачка Лю Хань, ви підтверджуєте, щоб захист проходив англійською мовою? Угу. Дякую. Отже, мова засідання англійська. Dear colleagues, according to the agenda, I give the floor to the applicant for presenting the main provisions of the dissertation. There is a proposal to set a time limit for the applicant's presentation of 15 minutes. Do you have any objections? Thank you. Please, Lu Hань, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Dear Chairman, members of the Specialized Academic Council, ladies and gentlemen, we offer to your attention a thesis on the topic Formation of Communicative Competence in Future Physical Education Teachers in Higher Education Institutions. Relevance of the chosen topic lies in the fact that, in the context of the current globalization of education and socio-economic changes, the process of developing communicative competence in future physical education teacher is becoming particularly important. The relevance of solving the scientific problem of improving the quality of communicative competence formation in future physical education teachers is reinforced by the requirements of regulatory and legal documents governing this process. At the same time, the structure of developing communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions remains unclear, which is due to society's need for specialists who are ready for modern education challenges related to the implementation of effective pedagogical and communicative interaction. All of the above necessitates the conduct of separate theoretical and experimental studies. Therefore, the relevance of the topic and research is beyond doubt. Slide 3-4. The object of the study is to develop, theoretically substantiate, and experimentally verify the experiments of specific pedagogical conditions and the efficiency of a structural functional model for developing the communicative competence of future physical education teachers in higher education institutions. In accordance with the stated objective, the following research tasks were identified. 1. Analyze the features in main conceptual ideas and conceptually scientific and theoretical positions and approaches to the problem of developing the communicative competence of future physical education teachers in higher education institutions. 2. To clarify the component, criteria, indicators, and levels of developing the communicative competence in future physical education teachers, and to determine their pedagogical and essential significance. 3. Identify and theoretically substantiate pedagogical conditions and develop an effective structural and functional model for the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers. 4. To experimentally verify the effectiveness of the substantiated pedagogical conditions and the structural functional model for the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers. Slide 5. Object of study, professional training of future physical education teachers in higher education institutions. The subject of the study is the pedagogical conditions and the structural functional model of developing the communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions. Sentence 6. In the first chapter of the dissertation, the conceptual and categorical apparatus of the study, which serves as the basis for substantiating the outline problem, is revealed, and the modern trends is substantiating training of future physical education teachers in higher education institutions are characterized theoretical analysis of conceptual ideas, scientific approaches, and relevant methodological provisions in the context of developing communicative competence in studies meaning. In 014.11, secondary education is carried out. Particular attention is paid to the analysis of domestic and foreign experience in training physical education specialists in educational institutions. We consider the communicative competence of future physical education teachers to be a multifaceted and integrative component of their professional training, ensure effective interaction between teachers and students, colleagues and parents in the educational process, and implies their ability to engage in constructive, verbal and non-verbal, aseptic communication, organize group activities, motivate students to engage in physical activity, and understand the individual needs of each student in the context of their physical development. The formation of communicative competence bachelor's degree students was considered in the light of innovative and approaches scientific, systemic, competence-based, activity-based, personality-oriented, communicative, comprehensive, consultative, individual, creative, and technological. Sentence 7. In Chapter 2, it has been established that the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions is a multidimensional process that combines theoretical training with pedagogical practice and covers the development of professional and communicative knowledge, skills and abilities, as well as communicative reflection. It includes stimulating cognitive, organizational, communicative, and health-preserving components, contributes to the resolution conflict situations and the implementation of pedagogical dialogue, provides a dialogical learning environment conducive to the comprehensive development of the skill child. Personality important structural components of the formation of communicative competence have been identified, stimulating cognitive, organizational, communicative, and health preserving, which are characterized by specific criteria and effective indicators. Slide 8. For the effective formation of communicative competence in future teachers, we have substantiated pedagogical conditions that includes designing the educational environment of higher education institutions in the direction of communicative growth of teachers, implementing active forms and methods in teaching to deepen and systematize knowledge on the formation of these competencies, the formation of general and professional competencies in the context of an interdisciplinary approach to professional training and the development of organizational communicative skills and abilities in the physical education students. Slide 9. in order to ensure broad opportunities for the development of this competence in each student during their studies. A curriculum has been developed taking into account scientific and pedagogical principles to facilitate professional orientation, individual characteristics of students, variability and innovation. An effective structural and functional model has been developed. It covers strategic, conceptual, methodological, and criteria diagnostic blocks, which integrate theoretical and practical aspects of training physical education specialists. Implementation of the process of forming communicative competence in bachelor's took place in 4 stages and involved determining different levels of communicative competence development from low, satisfactory, sufficient to high. Slide 11. In Chapter 3, the effectiveness of the author's program for developing communicative competence in future physical education teachers has been substantiated and verified through the introduction of effective pedagogical conditions and the author structural functional model into the educational process. An experiment covering 4 logically structured and interrelated stages of scientific research was used to test the effectiveness of their implementation in the educational process of students in the experimental groups. During the study, we developed an original program that contributed to the development of communication skills among students. First to 4th year students from 3 higher education institutions of Communist University, Washington University, and Tonopia National Pedagogical University. Participating in the experiment were involved in the implementation of the program. As part of the program, an optional course entitled Development of Communicative Competence in Future Physical Education Teachers was introduced at the formative stage. Each of the 6 interrelated stages of the program was implemented in lecture and practical classes. In the process of studying the disciplines, theory and methods of physical education, theory and methods of children's and youth sports, and professional skills, and in operational classes, and solve the specific theoretical, organizational, technological, and practical tasks. The study found that the communicative competence is a fundamental basis for mobilizing their own communicative and professional capabilities to find effective ways to solve complex pedagogical tasks that require effective cooperation, individual responsibility, and effective mutual understanding with the participants in the educational process. Slide 13. The dissertation comprehensively used diagnostic tools that reflected the positive dynamics of the formation of communicative competence in students of the experimental groups, in which the results of the indicators of this formation on average showed significant growth, while in the control groups of students, the growth in communicative competence was lower. The numerical values are shown on the slide. The reliability of the results obtained of the validity of the formative experiments were proven by statistical methods of data processing using Fisher's criteria. The numerical and statistical data obtained proved the effectiveness of the implemented pedagogical conditions and the structural functional model in the educational process of future teachers. The dissertation formulates general conclusions and provides a list of relevances. Slide 50. The report is complete. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Lu Hань. Dear colleagues, what questions do you have for the applicant? According to the procedure, all those who are present at the meeting have the right to ask questions to the applicant. Please, Professor Oksana Shukatka.
Thank you. Dear applicant, since the subject of your research is the pedagogical conditions and structural functional model of developing the communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions, the question arises: how do the structural functional model and the pedagogical conditions of such development correlate with each other?
Please.
Okay. Thank you for your question. Allow me to respond. The structural functional model and the pedagogical conditions for the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions are closely interrelated and interdependent, since the model we have outlined sets out the general logic of the study, its structure and mechanism for the formation of communicative competence, while pedagogical conditions ensure the effective functioning of the model. The structural functional model is the basis of the study, since the implementation of its strategic, conceptual, methodological, and diagnostic blocks determines the ways of forming communicative competence in students through the effective implementation of the pedagogical conditions we have identified. Thus, the structural functional model defines the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers step by step, and the pedagogical conditions that clearly correspond to the structure and logic of the model indicator ways to implement such reformation in practice. That's all for my answer. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer to your question?
Yes, I am. And the second question: what is the significance of solving the problem of developing the communicative competence of future physical education teachers in higher education institutions for the professional development of teachers?
Thank you for your question. Allow me to respond. Solving the problem of developing the communication skills of future physical education teachers has several important implications for the professional development of educators. Firstly, there is a professional implication. The professional activities of physical education teachers involve a great deal of communication. A successful teacher must possess communicative competence, which manifests itself in the ability to engage in dialogue with students, develop their critical thinking, and create a supportive educational environment where everyone feels valued. Secondly, pedagogical significance. Today, education opens up new opportunities. The optional course development of your communicative competence in future physical education teachers, introduced into the educational process of students, allowed bachelor's students to practice communication skills in various formats, from individual to group. Certainly, social significance. Future teachers having mastered communicative competence are able to interact effectively with students, parents, colleagues, and establish constructive dialogue with them. That's all for answers. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer to your questions?
Yes, I am satisfied.
Thank you. please, Professor Anatoly Konov. Please turn on your microphone. We cannot hear you. No, we cannot hear you. Please turn on your microphone.
Dear Lu Hань, I have two questions. The first, what is the essence of developing the communicative competence in future physical education teachers based on an interdisciplinary approach, and what are the characteristics of such development?
Okay.
And the second, what active teaching methods did you use in your research, and which of them are the most effective for developing communicative competence in future physical education teachers?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Allow me to respond. The development of communicative competence in future physical education teachers was based on an interdisciplinary approach in the process of students studying general and professional training disciplines. A distinctive feature of such development through the implementation of an interdisciplinary approach is that we include the following in the content of the classes: teaching methods and research into the communicative behavior of teachers. Methods of using words in physical education was the ability to express and justify one's own judgments. Methods of professional communication and the function of the teacher's speech in interaction with students and others. An interdisciplinary approach to teaching students through their active participation in the author's program and optional classes allowed us to develop the communicative abilities and skills of the students in the experimental groups, comprehend the basics of verbal and nonverbal communication, gain experiments in communication in problematic and conflict situation. Thus, the use of an interdisciplinary approach in the educational process contributes to the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers and teaches them to perceive the pedagogical process in a comprehensive manner. Thank you. All my answer. Thank you. That's all my answer. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer to your questions, Professor Anatoly Konov?
Yes, satisfied.
Thank you. Next, please, Professor Yuri Mosichuk. Your question.
Yeah, I have two questions. First questions. In her report, applicant noted communicative competence is an important component in the professional training in future physical education teacher. This raises the questions. What competence does it include?
Thank you for your question. Allow me to respond. The communicative competence developed in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions ensures effective interaction in the educational process, contributes to the development of their social and personal communication skills and abilities, and helps teachers adapt to changing conditions. Communicative competence is an integrated characteristic that includes a set of interrelated communications necessary for effective professional interaction, namely linguistic, emotional, social, cultural, and psychological, pedagogical competencies. Thus, communicative competence encompasses the ability to interact verbal and includes social, emotion, psychological, and informational skills that can ensure the effectiveness of the professional activity of future physical education teachers. That's all my answer. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer to your question?
Yes, satisfied. One more question is possible.
Yes, please.
How does the program you have developed shape the communication skill of physical education teachers?
Thank you for your question. Allow me to respond. The program for the development of communicative competence in bachelor's degree students of physical education experimental group, which we have developed, complies with the accurate regulatory documents concerning the education process in higher education institutions, and does not hinder its organizational implementation. According to this program, the methodological training plan for the formative stage includes supplementing the content of selected academic disciplines and having students work on individual assignments that include communication topics, development of the plan for the elective course development of communicative competence in future physical education teachers, and the feasibility of its methodological and material support, supplementing the content of work programs with individual tasks for the forming of communicative competence in students. Thus, the author's program will reveal the essence of the formation of communicative competence step by step, from the goal and content of the stages of its implementation to the final diagnosis to check the level of formation of this competence in future physical education teachers. That's all for my answer. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer to your question?
Yes, satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please, Associate Professor Oksana Кричківська.
I have two questions for you. Number one, as you have already mentioned, a structural functional model for developing communicative competence in future physical education teachers was introduced into the experimental research process. Why did you choose the particular type of model?
Okay, thank you for your question. Allow me to respond. In order to conduct a proper experimental study, we developed and implemented a structural functional model in the educational process of bachelor's degree program in physical education at higher education institutions. This type of model helps us to identify the comprehensive characteristics of the prototype object, reveal the essential properties of the analyzed phenomena and process, track their dynamics, and establish structural functional and causal interdependencies between individual elements of the object. In addition to the above, this type of model allows us to clearly define the structural and cognitive competence formation by identifying its key components. It shows the logical sequence of stages in the formation of this competence, combines theoretical and practical aspects of physical education teachers' training, creates a basis for the implementation of active teaching methods that promote the development of communicative knowledge, skills, and abilities. Thus, it is the structural functional model that ensures the systematicity, purposefulness, predictability, and effectiveness of the process of forming communicative competence in future physical education teachers. That's all for my answer. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer to your question?
Yes, I'm satisfied, and I have question number two. Your report discussed the course developing communication skills in future physical education teachers. What is the content of this course?
Thank you for your question. Allow me to respond. The course we have developed developing communication skills in physical education teachers includes the objective, tasks, methods, and stages of the course. Requirements for the content and the topic of the elective classes, topics of work, and the number of hours allocated for its implementation, independent work by students, questions for preparation for the text, educational and methodological support for the elective course. Thus, the content-rich program of the elective course is aimed at providing students in the experimental groups not only with ready-made communication skills, but also at orienting future teachers toward self-development and self-education activities within the framework of communication competence formation. That's all for my answer. Thank you.
Are you satisfied with the answer to your question?
Yes, I'm satisfied.
I also have two questions for the applicant. First question, please indicate the main pedagogical methods you use to study the communicative competence of physical education bachelor's degree students. And second question, state the objective of the final stage of the experimental study. If you achieved it, what results did you find?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Allow me to respond. At the first analytical stage of empirical research to measure the formation of components of communicative competence, we developed a diagnostic complex that includes the following methods: assessment of the professional orientation of future physical education teachers, reflection on self-development methodology, motivation for success, integrative assessment of the effectiveness of communicative activity, determining the level of use, the knowledge about health, and the author's methods. That's all for my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I am satisfied with the answer. And next, do the member of the one-time specialized academic council have any other question for the applicant? Thank you for your question. If you have no questions, let's move on to the next part of our defense, the reviews of the reviewers. The floor is now given to the reviewer, Associate Professor of the Department of Educational Studies and Pedagogy, West Ukrainian National University, candidate of Pedagogical Science, Associated Professor Oksana Krичківська. Please.
Thank you. Lü Han's dissertation aligns with the current pedagogical trends on developing soft skills with communicative competence being fundamental. The effectiveness of pedagogical activity depends on the level of this competence in future teachers. The work is timely, socially significant, and supported by Ukrainian and international regulatory documents. The research was conducted according to the scientific work of the Department of Ecology and Pedagogy at West Ukrainian National University, titled Professional Growth of an Educational Institution Teacher, Fundamental Theoretical, Technological, Practice-Oriented Aspects, approved by the department meeting. The scientific novelty lies in the development, definition, and theoretical substantiation of pedagogical conditions for the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions, and the methodology for their implementation in professional training courses, development of structural functional model for forming communicative competence in future physical education teachers, the clarification of its components, criteria, and levels of formation, the creation of an authorial program for the formation of communicative competence in students at higher education institutions, and the generalization and systematization of the experience of higher education institutions in forming communicative competence in physical education undergraduates. The practical significance of the obtained results lies in the development and implementation in the educational process of higher education institutions of an authorial program for the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers through the introduction of changes to specific topics within the content of the courses, theory, methods of physical education, theory and methods of children's and youth sports, professional mastery, and the strengthening of the interdisciplinary connections among them. The authorial elective course development of communicative competence in future physical education teachers implemented and carried out within students' independent work at higher education institution, a set of mind maps to support the study of the course professional mastery and to schematize interdisciplinary and interdisciplinary connections. The research materials have been implemented in the educational process of professional training for future physical education teachers at Khmelnytsky National University, State Higher Educational Institution, Uzhhorod National University, and Ternopil Volodymyr Hnatyuk National Pedagogical University. The reliability and substantiation of the scientific statements and conclusions formulated in the dissertation research are ensured by the following factors. Through the study and the comprehensive analysis of the scientific and theoretical work of domestic and foreign researchers, as well as the state of bachelor-level physical education training in higher education institutions, which enable Lyu Hань to substantiate the necessity and feasibility of researching the outlined problem by defining the conceptual and categorical apparatus and set the empirical research methods for the mathematical processing of the obtained experimental data. And through the systematic presentation of the fundamental provisions of the dissertation and the organization of experimental work with students of higher education institutions involved in the experiment. Through the study, a large number of scientific works, a list of references includes 207 titles, which enable the dissertation candidate to substantively define the concept of professional training of physical education teachers, competence of future physical education teachers, communicative competence of future physical education teachers, and social communicative activity of future physical education teachers, as well as to justify the criteria and levels of communicative competence formation in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions. Specifies the main scientific approaches to organizing the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers based on methodological approaches. Determine the particular features of forming communicative competence in bachelor level physical education students. Through the clear organization of the experimental work and the substantiated analysis of the research results, which demonstrated the effectiveness of the developed pedagogical conditions and methodology for forming the communicative competence of future physical education teachers. By presenting the research result in 15 publications by the author, which of 4 reflect the main scientific results of the dissertation, 9 are of approbation nature, and 2 additional publications reflect other scientific results of the dissertation. Characteristic of the structure and content of the dissertation. The dissertation consists of introduction, 3 chapters, conclusions to each chapter, general conclusions, a list of references, and appendices. The total volume of dissertation is 301 pages of printed text, with the main content presented on 198 pages. The work includes 10 figures and 34 tables. All chapters of the dissertation are written in academically correct style, logically interconnected and structured, which allowed Lyu Hань to consistently reveal all stages of the work. The presentation style is accessible, scientifically balanced, and considers modern pedagogical terminology. At the same time, despite the high scientific level of the dissertation, certain shortcomings require clarification, namely, number 1, the dissertation proposes a set of pedagogical conditions for forming the communicative competence of future physical education teachers. However, their differentiated impact on the educational outcomes of students was not fully analyzed. From the perspective of analytical pedagogy, it would be advisable to determine the priority factors influencing each specific condition, which would allow the candidate to clearly specify the structure of such influence and assess the effectiveness of pedagogical conditions in practical application. Number 2. It would also be advisable to expand the experimental base as the representative sample size of the study is somewhat limited, 59 participants from the higher education institution at the formative stage, which partially restricts the possibility of generalizing the results of the entire system of professional training in Ukraine. Number 3, the candidate involved a significant number of foreign language sources, but their analytical potential in the context of forming the theoretical foundations of the study was not fully revealed. Expand creation and cross-cultural comparison could further strengthen the theoretical basis of the dissertation. Number 4, however, based on the thorough analysis of the dissertation, we note that these remarks and suggestions do not substantially affect the overall positive assessment of the research. Compliance of the dissertation with established requirements and absence of violations of academic integrity. A review of Lu Han's dissertation for textual borrowings and its analysis confirmed that the candidate adhered to the principles of academic integrity with no instances of academic plagiarism, self-plagiarism, fabrication, or falsification. Therefore, it can be asserted that Lu Han's dissertation, Formation of Communicative Competence of Future Physical Education Teachers in Higher Education Institutions, represents an independent and comprehensive study demonstrating clear relevance, scientific novelty in both theoretical and practical significance. New, previously unprotected scientific findings and substantiated conclusions are fully reflected in the author's scientific publications. The research results are rational and applicable for the addressing of the problem forming communicative competence in future physical education teachers. The work complies with the requirements of clauses 6, 7, 8, and 9 of the procedure for awarding the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and emolument of the decision of one-time specialized academic council of higher education institution or research institution on awarding the degree of Doctor of Philosophy approved by the resolution of Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine dated January the 12th, 2022, number 44, as amended by the resolutions of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine number 341 of March 21st, 2024, number 502 of May 19, 2023, and number 507 of May 3rd, 2024, and its author Lu Hань deserves to be awarded the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the specialty 011 Educational Pedagogical Sciences.
Thank you, Associated Professor Oksana Krичківська. And now I ask the applicant to answer the reviewer's remark. Please.
Okay, thank you. Response to the first comment by the esteemed reviewer gave the proposed set of pedagogical conditions. We did not analyze the degree of their individual impact on the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers. In the dissertation, therefore, we will take this comment into account in future research. Response to the second comment by the esteemed reviewer. In pedagogical research, a sample of 30 to 50 pupils is considered sufficient for a formative experiment, as will have established clear control of variables, carried out a qualitative selection of students, and used the reliable methods of statistical analysis, namely Fisher's criterion. We partially agree with the third comment made by our esteemed opponent, as we used a large number of foreign language courses in our dissertation, the main provisions of which served as the theoretical basis for our research. Given that the dissertation has a limited scope, we were unable to provide extensive citations from foreign scientific works. We will take into account the intercultural comparison of the formation of communicative competence in our future research. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the reviewer satisfied with the applicant's answer?
Yes, I am satisfied.
Thank you. Oksana Krичківська, is it possible to include in the decision of the one-time specialized academic council only those remarks with which the applicant agreed?
Yes, it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mhm. Mhm. If you have no question, let's move on to the next part of our defense, the opponent's responses. The floor is given to the official opponent, head of the Department of Physical Education and Sport, Іван Франко National University of Lviv, Doctor of Pedagogical Science, Professor Oksana Shukatka. Please.
Thank you. One of the current needs is the improvement of the educational process in the field of physical education. This requires the students properly master the educational components defined by the educational standard, which are aimed at enabling future teachers to acquire fundamental theoretical knowledge, practical skills of professional interpersonal communication, and the ability to maintain a high level of pedagogical interaction while conducting physical education classes with pupils. From the perspective, the topic of Lyu Han's dissertation, formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions, is quite timely. The relevance of the dissertation research is properly substantiated in the content of the dissertation. The study of the dissertation text and the scientific publication related to the research topic demonstrates the revived work by Lyu Han is devoted to the investigation of a relevance and insufficiently explored problem of pedagogical education. The research was conducted within the framework of the research project of the Department of Educology and Pedagogy of West Ukrainian National University, professional growth of an educational institution teacher, fundamental, theoretical, technological, and practice-oriented aspects. The results of the dissertation research are objective based on a sufficient amount of research material and are confirmed by the breadth of coverage and the generalization of the primary materials collected and processed personally by the author, as well as by the use of a comprehensive set of scientific research methods. The obtained indicators were calculated using methods of mathematical statistics. When analyzing the soundness of the scientific provisions and conclusions, it is first of all necessary to note the logical interconnection between the title of the scientific direction, the formulation of the aim, and the research objectives. The conclusions follow from the tasks and the content of the dissertation research. Their objectivity and novelty are beyond doubt. The methodological and theoretical foundation of the research has been clearly defined by the author. The practical significance of the research results lies in the development of implementation of authorial materials into the educational process of higher education institutions, which make it possible to significantly increase its effectiveness. It is necessary to point out the sufficient geographical scope of the implementation of Lyu Han's dissertation research results. The material of dissertation is presented consistently in a scientific, clear, and concise style. Overall, the dissertation is a complete scientific work that corresponds to the profile of specialty 011 educational pedagogical science. While positively evaluating Lyu Han's dissertation research, it is necessary to identify several remarks that may serve as point for discussion during the defense. First, Chapter 1, Section 1.2 contains valuable analytical material of current trends in the training of future physical education teachers. However, the work would benefit if the author added a critical analysis or problem-oriented aspects of implementing the mentioned approach in practice in order to increase the level of scientific substantiation for example, challenges of digitalization, interdisciplinary overload, etc. Second, despite a solid theoretical foundation in the description or the third pedagogical condition, there is a lack of concrete examples of implementing the interdisciplinary approach in the educational process. It would be advisable to provide examples of integrating the content of academic disciplines during students' teaching practice, developing interdisciplinary project, or fragments of training sessions. Third, also the text presents a list of methodologies by Rogova, Ellis, Bergena, and others. There is insufficient justification for their adaptation to the specialty 014.11 secondary education, physical education, particularly regarding how they correlate with the professional specific of future physical education teachers. It would have been appropriate to substantiate why exactly these tools best reflect the formation of communicative competence in the context of professional training or physical education specialists. At the same time, it should be noted that the remarks expressed are not fundamental. They are of a recommendatory nature and do not significantly affect the overall positive evolution, nor do they diminish the scientific value of Lyu Han's dissertation research. The conducted analysis provides grounds to derive the general conclusion that in terms of relevance, content, to the totality of obtained results, scientific novelty, theoretical and practical significance, reliability, and completeness of their presentation in publications, the dissertation, formatting of communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions, submit for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Specialty 011 Educational Pedagogical Science is a complete and comprehensive study of a significant scientific problem. It meets the requirements formulated in the procedure for awarding the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and revocation of the decision of a one-time specialist academic council of a higher education institution or scientific institution on awarding the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. Resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine of January 12, 2022, number 44, and the order of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, number 40, of January 12, 2070, on approval of the requirements for dissertation formatting as amended on July 12, 2019, which provides grounds for awarding Lyu Hань the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Specialty 011 Education Pedagogical Science. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Professor Oksana Shukatka. Please, I ask the applicant to answer to the remark of the official opponent. Please.
Okay, thank you. Response to the first comment from esteemed opponent. In accordance with the objective tasks and the subject of the study, we were unable to describe the challenges of digitalization and interdisciplinary overload. However, if our esteemed opponent has made such a comment, we will take it into account in our future research. We partially agree with the second comment of our esteemed opponent, as the description of the third pedagogical conditions should have provided more examples of the implementation of an interdisciplinary approach in the educational process. However, we cannot provide examples of the integration of academic disciplines during students' teaching practice and the development of interdisciplinary projects. As this was not the subject of our study, since we implemented pedagogical conditions in the content of specific disciplines and extracurricular activities. Your third remark is absolutely valid and important for the scientific validity of the study. In the text of the dissertation itself, we provided a list of methods used in the work without explaining their correlation with the professional characteristics of a future physical education teacher. However, our use of the methods of roku, and ballerina in the study is due to their ability to comprehensively cover the key components of communicative competence relevant to the professional activity of a physical education teacher. Therefore, these methods allow for a thorough assessment of the development of communicative competence in future physical education teacher. We will take this comment into account in future studies. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the official opponent satisfied with the applicant's answer?
Yes, I am satisfied.
Thank you. Professor Oksana Shukatka, is it possible to include in the decision of the one-time Specialized Academic Council only those remarks with which the applicant agreed?
Yes, I am satisfied.
Thank you. And now the floor is given to the official opponent, head of the Department of Theory and Methods of Physical Education and Sport of Zaporizhia National University, Doctor of Pedagogical Science, Professor Anatoly Konov. Please.
Thank you, dear Olga Mykolaivna, dear colleagues. Let us focus on the positive aspects of Lyu Han's work, proposal, and conclusions. The dissertation convincingly reveals the initial scientific and theoretical position that determine the author's position. In terms of content, the dissertation has a classical structure and a standardized logic of presentation. The scientific novelty and reliability of the scientific provisions of the dissertation did not raise any doubts in our minds. The full text of the review is available on the website of the West Ukrainian National University. However, it is advisable to make certain comments which we define as recommendations. In the first chapter of the work, it would be desirable to provide the author's definition of communicative competency of future physical education teachers. In substantiation, the relevance of the dissertation research problem, the authors highlights a number of contradictions. It would be desirable to more clearly outline in the work which of them have been eliminated in the dissertation. The methodology of the pedagogical experiment is described in details. However, it is interesting to know how you performed mathematical and statistical calculations in other higher education institutions located and at distance. We believe it would be advisable to expand on the logic of forming the experimental and control groups in the process of organizing the pedagogical experiment in subsection 3.1. which would add credibility to the results obtained. It would be appropriate to develop and implement the author's teaching and methodological complexities in the process of the professional training of future physical education teachers, to be presented in the appendix and as a separate teaching and methodological publication. The work is not free from stylistic and spelling errors. The comments and suggestions made do not significantly affect the overall positive estimate of the dissertation, but only indicate the complexity of the issues under study. In general, Lü Han's dissertation's research is an independent and completed work. It is distinguished by its undoubted relevance and scientific novelty. Therefore, we conclude that the work meets the established regulatory requirements of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, which gives graduates for awarding Lü Han the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the specialty 011 Educational and Pedagogical Science. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Anatoly Konov, for your systematic approach to the analysis of the dissertation. And now I ask the applicant to answer to the remark of the official opponent. Please.
Okay, thank you. We would like to respond to the first comment made by our esteemed opponent. On page 47, the author provides a definition of communicative competence of future physical education teachers, stating that this competence serves as a multi-component characteristic of personality, including a theoretical and practice oriented block of communicative knowledge closely related to methodological skills of conducting a lesson, as well as the ability for self-development and adaptation to change. Regarding the second comment from our esteemed opponent, our response is as follows. On page 23, on the dissertation, a number of contradictions are highlighted. We have addressed the first and the second contradictions in sections 1.22 and 1.3, respectively. We outlined the third contradiction in the first chapter and addressed it in subsection 2.1. While we addressed the fourth contradiction in subsection 2.3. However, if our esteemed opponent has raised such a comment, we will be more explicitly certain in our future research and emphasize the elimination of various types of contradictions. The answer to your third question is as follows. During the search and assessment and initial control stages of the formative phase, we conducted surveys among students in the control and experimental groups using questionnaires in Google formats. We were assisted by teachers who familiarizing students with the methods and advised them on how to conduct the testing. At the end of the formative stage, we personally visited higher education institutions to conduct testing and questioning with students. We were assisted in organizing the work by colleagues from the department, whose students were involved in the experiment. Empirical data was collected at each university using a single methodology, and identical tasks collected material were subject to future mathematical and statistical calculations and analysis. We respond on the false comments made by our esteemed opponent to increase the reliability of the results of the pedagogical experiment. We clearly defend the conditions for formation the experimental and control groups. The principle of comparison was taken as a basis. In our case, the participants in both groups had almost the same level of academic achievement, studied the same course, and followed the same educational and professional program. The number of participants in the groups was approximately the same, which made it possible to able statistical methods of analysis of the results. In our case, this is Fisher's criteria. The control groups studies using contradictional methods, while the experimental group used the author's pedagogical conditions. Thus, we ensured the homogeneity of the group in the term of key characteristics. We fully agree with the fifth comment made by our esteemed opponent. Although the author's teaching and methodological complexities are included in the appendices to the dissertation, they should have been published as the separate teaching and methodological publication. Regarding the sixth question, we agree with the official opponent. We will take this comment into account in our future scientific research. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the official opponent satisfied with the applicant's answer?
Yes, satisfied.
Thank you. And now the floor is given to the official opponent, Dean of the Faculty of Physical Culture, Sport and Rehabilitation, Yuri Fedkovich, Chernivtsi National University, Doctor of Pedagogical Sciences, Professor Yuri Moseichuk. Please.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Analysis of Lyu Han's dissertation, Formation of Communicative Competence, Future Physical Education Teachers in Higher Education Institution, and made publication and made possible draw conclusion regarding the relevance of research topic in scientific knowledge, its substantiation of science provision, as well its theoretical and practical value, and to confirm of absence of any violation of academic integrity in the work. In today's conditions, the modern education system of Ukraine and the growing profit chances focusing on the competence-based approach foundation for training specialists. On the context on main priorities in the Ministry of Education on Science is improving the quality professional training in the future physical education teachers in general secondary education institutions. Science they play a crucial role in shaping healthy lifestyle, physical development, and upbringing of the young generation. The relevance of the research is also determined by need to adapt educational programs to the requirements of the new Ukraine school, which involves to active of the innovative technologies. Lyu Han's dissertation research was carried out in accordance with the research project of Department of Ecology and Pedagogy of West Ukraine National University. All the scientific provision, conclusion, and the recommendation formulated in the dissertation are sufficient. The analysis of the content of the dissertation, it is abstract, and Lyu Han's publication provides grounds to conclude the scientific validity of reliability of the result presented by the author. The result of research substantiated by Lyu Han ensure the novelty and reliability of general conclusion of dissertation. Analysis of dissertation research allows us to state the author has obtained significant scientific result. In particular, for the first time in the pedagogical condition for the formation communicative competence of future physical education teachers in higher education institution have been identified and theoretical substantiated. We note the improvement of the content, professional training of physical education teacher, competence of future physical education teacher, communicative competence of future physical education teacher. Research material have been implemented in the educational process of training future physical education teacher of Khmelnytsky National University, State Higher Education Institution, Uzhhorod National University, and Ternopil Volodymyr Gnatyuk National Pedagogical University. In first chapter, the author cover many aspects current trends of training future specialists. Lyu Han's research emphasized the development and innovative thinking among future physical education teachers, the formation of the ability to create original methodological product. In the second chapter, the methodological substantiation of the readiness of future physical education teacher professional activity. In this chapter, author has conducted in-depth study of the theoretical and practical aspect of forming communicative competence in the future physical education teacher. In three chapters, the result of scientific pedagogical study presented. The research was divided into 4 stages, each clearly defined task and results. It should be emphasized that the structurally corresponds to science approach to conduct pedagogical experiments. The dissertation also presents the development program of the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teacher in holistic system. The conclusion drawn by the author testify to systematic research with high level of validity of obtained results. The main results of the research presented in 15 scientific publications by the author. Debatable provisions and remarks of the content of the dissertation. Positively evaluate the obtained result of Lyu Hань dissertation research. We consider it necessary to highlight 13 debatable points that require clarification and explanation, which may be taken as recommendation. 1. In this first chapter in the dissertation, considerably attention is given essence of training future physical education teacher in additional institution with reference of the work of domestic and foreign scholars. In our opinion, it will be advisable to include more of the author's own generalization and ages critically with established views. In this case, it will be more appropriate to identify the positively and negatively aspects from the author's perspective, as well to determine similarity, differences such as comparative analysis as foreign and domestic approach will be better emphasize the research naturally in author's own position. 2. We believe that study will be enriched by analysis of how the presented structural functional model of forming communicative competence in the future physical education teacher could be adapted to other pedagogical specialists. 3. Dissertation address a wide range of terminological concepts. However, it will be advisable to maintain greater terminological consistency. For example, in the dissertation text, the terms Bachelor of PE, Bachelors of PE, students of PE, PE students are used. In our opinion, is a more correct formulation will be student of the specialty 040 Mark 11, secondary education, physical education. 4. We note that dissertation refers of number of key normative documents which highlights of relevance and regulatory basic of the work. However, in our view, the research will have benefited from an analysis of professional standard teacher of general secondary education institution. It should also be mentioned that while the dissertation refers in the higher education standard for the specialty 014 Mark 11, secondary education, physical education, first bachelor's level. There is no information is specialty in the official list on approved higher education standard of the website Ministry of Education Science. From the dissertation text is methodology for forming the experimental and control groups, the method of selection in the distribution by year of study are not entirely clear. 6. In our opinion, it would be appropriate to include in the appendices the profile in the education and professional programs with least education components of the specialty 014.11 in all higher education institutions where students participated in the experiment. This will make it possible to trace the competence in the learning outcomes that directly ensure fulfillment of the state objective. However, the remarks expressed do not have fundamental character and do not diminish it as a positive evaluation of the scientific work. Conclusion of the compliance of the dissertation with the requirements of the procedure for awarding scientific degree. Summarizing to above state the Lyu Hань dissertation, the topic formation communicative competence in the future physical education teacher in higher education institution is completed independent study in the contains scientific novelty and original contribution in has both theoretical and practical significance in the result. The formatting of the work complies with the requirement of the Order Ministry of Education Science of Ukraine, number 40, January 12, 2017, with amendments order of the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine. Therefore, Lyu Hань fully deserves to be awarded the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in Specialty 011 Educational Pedagogical Sciences within field in Knowledge 01 Education Pedagogy. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you, Professor Yuri Moseichuk, for your systematic approach to the analysis of the dissertation. And now I would like to ask the applicant to answer to the remark of the official opponent. Please, Lyu Hань.
Thank you. Response to the first comments by our esteemed opponent, referring to the works of domestic or foreign scholars in sections 1.2 and 1.3 of the first chapter of the dissertation. We implemented a methodical, justified approach which allowed us to deeply review the essence of professional training of future physical education teachers, which in turn contributed to the creation of a solid scientific basis for further generalizations, comparative analysis, and the manufacturing of our own authors' position on the formation of communicative competence of future physical education teachers in higher education institutions. Regarding the second comment from our esteemed opponent, we would like to offer the following response. The structural and functional model we propose for developing the communicative competence of future physical education teachers can be used for other specialists by adapting it to the specific feature of a particular specialty. The author's model can serve as the basis for developing communicative competence. We fully agree with the third comment made by our esteemed opponent, as there was a more critical error in the text of the dissertation, namely, the word specialty was omitted, namely Bachelor of Physical Education, applications for physical education, students of physical education. Regarding the fifth comment of our esteemed opponent, we note that in selecting and distributing students, measuring in 014.11 secondary education into control and experimental groups. We use the methods of forming such groups that are well-known and generally accepted in scientific circles. We did not deviate from these methods in any way. We partially agree with the post and these comments of our esteemed opponent. Yes, there are too many regulatory and legal documents on the subject of our research, so we choose those that correspond to the profile of our dissertation. Regarding the second part of the comment, we made a mechanical error in the dissertation, omitting the word project. Accordingly, we referred to the draft standard. We will take this comment into account in future research. Regarding the sixth comment, we did not provide profiles, education and professional programs with a list of educational components in the dissertation because they are posted on the websites of each university whose students participated in the experiment in the text of the dissertation. We provided links to the websites of universities where educational and professional programs in the specialty are posted. However, if the honorable opponent has made such a comment, we will take it into account in future research. Thank you.
Thank you. Lü Hань. Is the official opponent satisfied with the applicant's answer?
Thank you. Yes, satisfied.
Thank you. In accordance with the regulation, we proceed to discuss the decision of the Council to award the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, in which only members of the Specialized Academic Council are entitled to participate. Who will start the discussion process? Please raise your hand. Please, Professor Anatoly Konov.
Thank you. I would like to note that this work is fundamental in that it implements a communicative approach to professional training. At the same time, the research is classic basis. It includes theory, methodology, and experimentation. The work implements a systematic approach to the formation of communicative competence and its invariance. What can we wish for the postgraduate student? Not to stop, but to continue working in this direction, developing this topic. I definitely support this work. I fully accept the draft decision and have no comments on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Anatoly Konov. Next, please, Professor Oksana Shukatka.
Thank you. The work of the candidate is important for use. Those present in this hall because we all work in higher education institutions and therefore use communication skills in our professional work. Therefore, the main provisions proposed by the candidate in her dissertation contribute to the professional growth of students, influence their teaching skills and the effectiveness of educational activities general. The novelty and relevance of the work indicate the value of the results obtained for the future professional of a teacher and are characterized by practical significance. The applicant's proposals can be implemented in the training system for higher education students of all specialties. This research meets all the requirements for this type of scientific qualification work. and its author deserves to be awarded the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the specialty 011 Education, Pedagogical Science. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Next. Please, Associated Professor Oksana Кричківська.
I would like to note that I was pleased to be a reviewer of such a well-done work. I would like to note that the work uses a large number of scientific sources, reviews them, and integrates the concepts of foreign scientists into the content of dissertation. The author has presented a number of key achievements. The categorical and conceptual apparatus of the research on the topic of the dissertation has been supplemented. Indicators, criteria, and levels of communicative competence have been determined. The pedagogical conditions have been identified, and the structural functional model for the formation of communicative competence in future physical education teachers in higher education institutions has been presented. I would like to note that the value of the author's program for the formation of communicative competence in students, the introduction of an optional course, the development of flashcards for each section of the disciplines of the basis of which she conducted an experiment, and much more. The experimental results obtained confirmed by mathematical data processing and methods of mathematical statistics are of a great value. I support this work, and therefore I believe that its author, Lü Hань, deserves the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in the field of knowledge 01, education pedagogy, specializing in 011, educational pedagogical sciences.
Thank you so much. Next. Professor Yuri Moseichuk, please.
Thank you. I was pleased to read the dissertation presented to us today is Lü Hань. Her work in comprehensive as complete study on the formation communicative competence in the future physical education teacher education institution. As a scientific proposition, she highlights are of theoretical and practical significance of the professional training of student and continue. Previously unproven scientific proposition and well-founded conclusion, which are fully reflected in 15 scientific publications of the author, for which are published in category B publication. The dissertation author has fully accomplished all the tasks outlined in the work of achieving the set goal. I wish author success in her future scientific work and the deeper immersion in the field of the professional communication. I have no comments in the draft decision of the Specialized Council. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, and I would like to take part in the discussion too. The dissertation by Lü Hань is available for educators, researchers, and practicing teachers, as it focuses on the holistic development of the students' communicative competence. The author clearly defines the legal, theoretical, and methodological foundation of the research, as well as 4 stages of the study conducted from 2021 to 2025. The main results are presented in 15 publications, including 4 in the category B journals. A strong aspect of the work is the methodology for implementing the author program for developing communicative competence in the teaching of professional training disciplines. This program includes well-defined goals, tasks, and content aimed at forming this competence in future physical education teachers. As the author is a physical education teacher at the Chinese university, I encourage her to apply the results of her own teaching, share her experience with colleagues, and continue professional growth by deepening her theoretical knowledge on the topic. And I don't have any remarks to the decision of the Specialized Academic Council. And next, do we have the answer yes from all the members of the council?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So we can finalize the discussion solution and take it as a basis. The floor is now given to the applicant of Doctor of Philosophy degree, Lü Hань, for her closing speech. Please, Lü Hань.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the Specialized Council. I would like to express my gratitude to the rector of the university, Professor Oksana Desitnyuk, the chairman of the university's academic council, Professor Andrei Krysovaty, the vice rector for scientific work, Professional Mykola Devak, for the opportunity to defend my qualification work at the West Ukrainian National University, the director of the Education and Scientific Center for Training and Certification of Higher Education and Scientific Personnel of the West Ukrainian National University, Professor Olena Sidorovich, for her organizational and scientific methodological assistance, the chair and the members of the Specialized Academic Council for the opportunity to hold a meeting to defend my thesis, and for their questions, comments, and suggestions. My scientific supervisor, Professor Lilia Oleboha, for her support, advice, and scientific and methodological assistance in writing my thesis. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Шановні члени разової спеціалізованої вченої ради, відповідно до пункту 28 постанови КМУ від 12 січня 2022 року, номер 44 зі змінами та затвердженого нею порядку присудження ступеня доктора філософії та скасування рішення разової спеціалізованої вченої ради закладу вищої освіти, наукової установи про присудження ступеня доктора філософії, кожен член разової ради відкрито висловлює свою позицію за присвоєння або за відмову у присвоєнні ступеня доктора філософії. Рада приймає рішення щодо присудження ступеня доктора філософії Лю Хань шляхом відкритого голосування. Шановні колеги, ставлю на голосування рішення Спеціалізованої вченої ради ДФ 58 082 082. Прошу проголосувати. Хто за? Проти? Утримались? Немає. Рішення Спеціалізованої вченої ради прийнято одноголосно за. Шановні колеги, ставлю на голосування питання про затвердження проекту рішення Спеціалізованої вченої ради ДФ 58 082 082. Прошу голосувати. Хто за? Проти? Утримались? Немає. Рішення про затвердження проєкту Спеціалізованої вченої ради прийнято одноголосно за. Дякую. Рішення, отже, Спеціалізованої вченої ради прийнято одноголосно. Шановні колеги, таким чином, на підставі результатів голосування та прийнятого рішення Спеціалізована вчена рада присуджує Лю Хань ступінь доктора філософії зі спеціальності 011 освітні педагогічні науки, з чим і вітаємо нашу Лю Хань.
Thank you very much.
Чи будуть зауваження щодо ведення засідання ради?
Немає зауважень.
Дякую всім, хто взяв участь у засіданні ради. Засідання ради оголошено.